Good morning. I'm Dr. Kavita, working as assistant professor in the Department of Physiology. Now we are going to see about the action potential. So when the cell is getting activated, there is a potential generated, that is an electrical event. For any activity to occur, electrical event should take place. For example, heart has to pump. So before heart pumping as a mechanical event, there should be electrical event. Heart cell is cardiocyte. In the cardiocyte, there will be an electrical change, that is electrical potential should be created to get the action potential. So in generally, how in each cell the electrical potential is generated only we are going to see as a action potential. So at the end of this session, the student should be able to describe the resting membrane potential, differentiate the local and action potential, explain the physiological basis of muscle action potential in particular. So here if you take the cell, here the picture shows the cell membrane. The cell membrane inside and outside, if there is a movement of ions, there is obviously the current will generated. Inside the more ion present is potassium ions, outside the sodium ions. So because of movement of this ionic changes, the current generated. This is not only happening during the action state, it is also happening during the resting stage. So even at the resting stage, there is some amount of movement in the ionic cations as well as anions which create the current. So what is happening at the rest? Because of presence of sodium potassium pump, there is 3 sodium is going out. Instead of that, 2 potassium is coming in, which creates the 1 negativity inside the cell. Along with that, the potassium channel and the presence of sodium leakage channels are also allowing the movement of ions. This is also creating the negativity inside the cell. And the third factor is non-diffusible cationic anionic proteins which is present inside the cell membrane. That is negative protein which is present inside the cell membrane, which is also the reason for resting membrane potential negative. So when we take any kind of excitable tissue, for example nerve, muscle, anything, so that will have a negative potential inside the cell, that is because of above listed 3 reasons, that is sodium potassium pump, leaky channel and non-diffusible anionic protein present inside the cell membrane. So this is happening even at the level of rest. So what happens in the action stage? When the stimuli is applied, there is fluctuation in the ionic movements. So first ions which goes into is sodium ions, because sodium concentration is more outside when compared to inside. When the stimuli is just applied, so what happened? It results in end plate potential, that is fluctuation in the ionic movements results in end plate potential. If the stimuli is adequate enough, that is called as threshold stimuli. If the threshold stimuli is applied, there is action potential generated. So before that, there is a generation of local potential, that is end plate potential. Once the end plate potential is generated, this will initiate the action potential. Action potential is generated only in the presence of threshold stimuli. So what happens in the action potential state? So this picture shows A is a generation of local potential and B is a generation of action potential. So in the action potential, if you see, so if you see the phases of action potential, so this picture shows that RMP is minus 90 millivolt, nothing but the muscle action resting membrane potential. When you apply this stimuli, when it is adequate, so there is a generation of action potential. First phase is depolarization phase. Depolarization is against polarized state because of presence of sodium channel opening. So when the sodium channel is opening, sodium influx happens, which results the negativity of the resting membrane potential towards the positivity. This positivity increases up to plus 35 millivolt. This picture shows the opening of sodium channel getting activated. After some time it is getting inactivated. So once it is getting inactivated, the plus 35 becomes stopped. So at that time there is an opening of potassium channel. When the potassium channel is getting open, there is a potassium efflux, because potassium ions inside the cell is more, so potassium efflux happens. When the cations coming out, again there is decrease in the positivity, it is coming towards the resting stage. That is stage is called as repolarization. So first phase is depolarization, that is because of sodium channel opening, sodium influx. Second stage is repolarization, that is because of potassium channel opening, that is potassium efflux. So this picture shows the sodium channel and potassium channel gate. So when the muscle is at the rest minus 90 millivolt, when the threshold stimuli is applied, the gate get open, so activation of sodium channel. So when the activation of sodium channel happening up to 35 millivolt. So 35 millivolt is nothing but sodium equilibrium potential. When it has been reached, there is no more sodium entry. At the same time, sodium channel is also getting inactivated. So at the time, potassium channel is getting opened. So potassium efflux happens until it reaches the minus 90 millivolt. Why minus 90 millivolt? Because the potassium equilibrium potential is minus 90 millivolt. So ionic movement happens until the particular equilibrium potential reaches. So that finishes the action potential. So action potential obeys particularly two important laws. First law is all or none law. So all or none law is nothing but when the stimuli is at the level of subthreshold, that is, if it is not adequate, there is no generation of action potential. If the stimuli is threshold, that is, if it is adequate stimuli, there is a generation of action potential. If the stimuli is supra-threshold, more than the adequate stimuli, that time we can't expect the better response. That is same as like a threshold stimuli response only. How to remember easily? Sub-threshold stimuli, no response. Threshold stimuli, adequate response, that is action potential. Supra-threshold stimuli, no better response. So we can't expect by giving a more adequate, more strength of stimuli and getting a more response. That won't be possible. So only the normal stimuli will be applicable all the time, though the stimuli is threshold or supra-threshold. At the same time, sub-threshold cannot generate the action potential. So that is nothing but all or none law. And second main law is refractory period. Refractory period is, though you are giving a stimuli, if it is adequate even, there won't be any action potential. That is happening if the stimuli, if you are giving during the first 1/3 of depolarization and 1/3 of repolarization. If the stimuli fall at the depolarization phase as well as the 1/3 of repolarization phase, there won't be a response. Why? Because the sodium channel will be already open up because of application of first stimuli. So that time if you apply the second stimuli, we can't expect the sodium channel coming to action because already it is being open. So we have to give time for the sodium channel to come to the resting stage to open up again. So there is a refractory period. Refractory period is nothing but second in the threshold stimuli cannot produce the action potential if it is falls on the first phase of action potential period, that is depolarization phase as well as the 1/3 of repolarization phase. After 1/3 of repolarization phase, there is a possibility for the generation of action potential because in that time there is most of the sodium channel will come to an inactivation stage. So there is a possibility if you are giving a adequate stimuli, the inactivated sodium channel again will go for activated state. So before coming to the hyperpolarization state, if you are giving a second stimuli at the level of second phase of repolarization, we can generate the second action potential immediately before going to a hyperpolarized state. So to the end, we are saying the phases of action potential is, if you are giving a threshold stimuli, there is a depolarization followed by repolarization and continues as a hyperpolarization, and it will come to the resting membrane potential again to the normal resting membrane potential, that is minus 90 in case of muscle. So this action potential mainly obeys the two law, that is nothing but all or none law and the refractory period. So this shows the basic knowledge about the action potential. Thank you.